Hello and welcome to Frame and Reference. I'm your host, Kenny McMillan, and you're listening to episode 106 with Markus Mentzer, DP of I Think You Should Leave. Enjoy. Have you been watching anything cool recently?
I feel like I have. I just watched Pacification. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't even heard of that.
It's just like it's like a 2-hour. It's this French movie. It's like 2.5 hours of basically colonialization on some level or another. But it's just very nice and slow. It just breathes a ton. You're like, should I look at my phone, or then you like turn everything off and just like shut the world away? It's great.
I'm definitely for my whole life, I was never the like phone while watching things. Like I was always committed, and then I guess it must have been the pandemic or maybe just getting busier. But now it's like it keeps creeping back up into the. That's so it sucks.
I feel like the Trump the Trump pandemic combo just like enabled me to pull that thing out all the time, and all I want to do is hide it. And then or like I have the limits on, so every like 15 minutes I'm like, no, I'll just take another 15 minutes, and then suddenly it's like 3 PM.
Yeah, no, I actually somehow forgot about that, how like every morning you'd wake up and check Twitter and just be like, are we at war? No? All right, we're good. Like, do I still have rights? All right, we're good.
Yeah, sort of, I guess. Whatever, just for
yeah, close enough. Yeah. Oh, we bombed a different country. That's interesting. Yeah, a lot of times, a lot of DPs have been like, oh, Succession, The Crown, and Andor earlier on. And I was actually right before you, we had to reschedule, but I was going to interview the guy who shot The Crown and Andor. And I was like, oh, fuck, like now's the time. I never get to interview. Andor was the first show that I was like, this is what it's supposed to feel like. Rogan was cool, but
I just started rewatching it yesterday, and it's as good as you thought. Like I didn't think anything of it first episode or two. I was just like, I think this could be good, but whatever. I wasn't expecting a lot. Yeah. Now you start from the beginning and again, now you get this, at least for me, I get the meaning a little more, it's actually it's all building up to something. So
yeah.
Oh, it's great. That was the best show this past year.
Yeah, by far. And I was trying to tell people who like don't watch or don't really care about Star Wars that much. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like it's just a good show. Like,
although I guess the other thing, I mean, I religiously watched Barry. I actually I worked on the pilot for it that Brandon Frost shot.
No good.
And yeah, it was awesome just because like everything we did, it was only like 2.5 weeks. Like I don't really ever remember jobs very well, but like that one was very specific because we had like shot lists that they already had, and they had photo boarded everything, and like they stuck to it. And then the whole show was that. And it was like, oh man, this was all, they knew all this. Like they figured this whole thing out in advance, and that was great. It's just great that they just kept that thing going for 4 years, and they never broke.
It was, that show was a big surprise. I heard Bill Hader was like real good at running things just because like he knew everyone's name, he knew everyone's job. He like,
I mean, he's just he and Brandon were awesome too, but like he's already an editor in his head. Like obviously he's an amazing actor. He's obviously an amazing writer. Like he's got all that stuff, so it's like, yeah. And I'd actually, friends of mine that I work with knew him as a PA. So like, sure. Because like I started, we all started in like the early 2000s. So they knew him then when he was doing like kind of voices and telling stories and stuff. And then everyone just saw him progress. So yeah, the whole thing is just kind of like, I don't know. And then to see all that, it's just amazing. It's super entertaining. But the show on its own, regardless of all that, the show's amazing.
Yeah. It probably helps that he's a giant film nerd too. Have you seen this thing, the Criterion in the Closet thing?
No, I didn't see it.
Do you know what I'm talking about, that series?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so he does one where he's pulling out like, I think he pulled out Salo, he pulled out like all these other movies, but he's like naming the directors and naming everything. And then he goes, ooh, House, and pulls it out and he goes, this is my favorite movie, great date night. And then goes, oh wait, and unzips his hoodie and he's got the fucking House, the like logo on his shirt.
Nerd.
Yeah, big nerd, cool guy. What I was going to say about Andor, though, it's because he rescheduled. You'll have to send me any questions you have.
Oh yeah,
so I can ask him what's up.
Well, I'll probably get through it this weekend, to be honest.
Perfect. That's perfect. Yeah, I think he's like later next week, so plenty of time. Am I correct in reading that you're technically a doctor?
Yeah, technically. Yeah. Back in the day, man.
How did you go chemistry, medicine, loader?
I mean, I was, I grew up, I grew up in a medical family with science around. I worked in labs in the summers, did a lot of really crazy things. And then, and I can't say I ever truly loved it. And it wasn't until I was in med school that I really started getting miserable. And every year is like, well, maybe next year's going to get better. Next year's going to get better. And then never did. And at some point I was like supposed to apply to residency. And I was like, I can't do this. Like, I need to breathe or do something else. Cause you also like study. It's just, it's so much work. You never see the world.
Right.
So, so when we graduated, like everyone was like, I'm going to, Columbia, I'm going to University of Virginia. And then for Markus Mentzer, it was like career to be determined. It was this really was off the grid long sentence. And then, so I moved to New York. I moved in with my girlfriend and now my wife from college. And so trying to find things that were the opposite of medicine and things that I thought I liked. And I was pretty burnt out and started scrubbing cases at Panavision New York for free. I thought maybe there was a way into the film business. And it was kind of like what you were just saying, word got around pretty quick that there was a doctor like cleaning cases with acetone. And I basically got an internship on this movie called In the Cut. It was like a little indie movie in the East Village. I think I just looked it up. The 20-year anniversary is this fall. So when it got released, we shot it.
Did it hit? I feel like I recognize that name.
Yeah, Jane Campion. It was like
fucking
Meg Ryan movie.
Yeah.
But it was like, it was basically, it was Dion Beebe shot it. It was like it was a single camera in the East Village. And, it's like New York, right? So you're running mags. It needs people to run mags up to the second, third floor, walk-ups. And I was super down. And within like the first week, I knew like, this is what I want to do. I think at the end of the week, I signed up for like camera workshops in Maine. I was like, this is it. Like, this is better than anything I've ever done. But I also was super fortunate because the camera team that I worked with on that was, they were old school New York, but they were also very like, hey, do this. This is how you load a camera. Like I'd never been, this is how you, load a mag. This is how carts are set up. This is how you organize a camera truck. This is how you talk to departments. This is try and slate. My first slating experience was embarrassingly horrible. So it was all of that. And then they just really like threw me in the mix and didn't fire me. And like, it was the best. I'm still super close with all of them. I mean, it was life-changing. So that's how I got in.
Was that the main media workshops that you got into?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't, I think at the time, you just had to like, hey, find out.
Yeah.
I didn't apply. But yeah, it was, I had a class with, his name is Doug Hart. I think he just passed like a week or two ago, actually.
Oh, wow.
He had this camera assistant book that I read, that was like, I got to memorize this thing. So, it took like a medical approach, but, everything was just like, it was never in an office. You were always on location. You were always trying to solve problems. It was just like, buzzing on set. You're in the middle of it. And, there was still pressure. And I really liked the pressure too. So,
yeah,
it's the whole thing.
Well, and I assume also the sort of tedium and soloness of a medical career. Not that I went to medical school, so I went to Arizona State. Was the opposite of that is being on set with a bunch of people. You know, it's the teamwork aspect was probably refreshing as well.
Well, you know, the thing is that the things that I thought medicine were going to be, it just wasn't. Like, I thought that you would have this team and you'd work with like nurses and technicians and, you know, people coming out of the ambulance and the ER and all this stuff. And it was like very quickly, you're sort of, at least to me, and I could be totally wrong on this. And on top of it, I was not very good, so I should have no authority on this. But you were just sort of clocking in, clocking out. You were a hired gun, and you know, to me, it was like you had to really just brute memorize everything, right. And there was no creativity at all. And I think that was very different from like doctors who grew up in like the 70s. Where everything was new, you know,
right?
You know, and you know, and at least it wasn't the 90s. I don't know, but like you would spend, you know, you were only allowed to talk to a patient for 3 to 5 minutes, otherwise the insurance company would call up, being like, "You're wasting your time. Like you need to see your patients today." I was like, "What is this? Like this is not
right.
What am I doing? I can't." But I mean, you know, I really was super lucky to get in and get all that stuff. But it would have just. It's not what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of like camera people out there who get science and medicine, and like film people in general, who are burnt out pretty quick.
A ton of DPs I've interviewed, specifically the older people, but were architects.
Oh yeah.
And I'm kind of fascinated by that. Like, why was it architecture that brought so many creative people, specifically in the camera department, that wanted to design buildings?
I don't know. It's like visually you get it, but like, I mean, I have no idea. What do they? I don't even know what they do. I don't know what their day is like. Like how?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's certainly not engineering, because you're like, there's a big hole in this building that planes can fly through, and you're like, nah, that's not gonna. Someone's gonna be mad at you if they have to build that. So was that a pretty quick transition from like loader to second then? Because, you know, speaking of Bill Hader, you had the pretty standard like beginning of the camera department all the way to the finish line, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I think you start out thinking like, I'm going to be shooting movies in like 6 months, and then you know, every one of these positions is like a real specialty. So like, you know, loader to second took me 3 years. And then I think second to first took me 6 years. And then first to DP was in the 7-year range. But like every time you move up, it's like a whole new job.
Right.
Because nobody knows you in that position. And then you have to prove to those people, and you have to get recommendations for that, and to build your like clients, I suppose is the way to say it. But yeah, and then on top of that, you have to sort of just try to live a normal life. You know, you've got stuff that, you know, you want to be able to like have a family and stuff. So,
yeah.
So I think that it took some time, but like I also really like my job, and I like working in that department a lot. I still do. I think the big trick is to like stay out of people's business. It's true. You become one of the old dudes. Back in my day, you used to, you know, load like this. It's like,
right.
Dude, I have no idea what I'm talking about anymore with digital. So I got to stay out of it.
It has been kind of fun to chat with various people about like the transition from film to digital, because I feel like from those on the outside, or, you know, simply just like fans of movies, there's this kind of like, I mean, obviously we all romanticize film because it's pretty and whatnot, but I think everyone I've spoken to who went through that transition basically said it was practically way better to shoot digital, and the only romanticism came from the sort of mystery part of it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like being a magician, where it's like once you know the tricks, you're more looking at it analytically, like, good. You know, or like a comedian. You can always tell who's a comedian in the room when you're at a stand-up show, because they're in the back just going, you know, good joke. Yeah. Nailed it.
Yeah.
That was fucking hilarious. You know?
Yeah. I think that's a great summary. I would agree with all of it. I mean, the mystery is, you know, I mean, the only person with film, the only person who really knows what's going on is the one with the eye and the eyepiece.
Right.
Yeah, everything else is sort of just guesswork. You don't know what the video tab's doing. You can't even hear if something's something's wrong with the camera, all of it. So, and that mystery like makes everything look better. And so,
Right.
But yeah. I mean, I totally agree with that. And I mean, there's definitely things that I miss about film, but a lot of it is, again, though, that period of time where like I was loading or seconding, the smell of it,
It smells like power bait, right?
Right.
I keep telling people that. I'm like, do you know what power bait smells like? That's film. I'm like, huh?
I mean, I was telling this, we were telling like loading horror stories last week. And one of them was, I was on a movie in Freeport as a second, and we were parked on a hill, and the carts had not been tied down. And so someone was like, we're flipping stocks. And so I ran and opened up the back of the truck, and 2 carts full of mags just like flew out the back and dumped out. And I remember turning around, and our DP was Matt Leonetti, and his head was poking out of the door looking at me. And I was like, I'm going home. This is it. Like,
right.
This is the worst, and like everything had to be I had to dive in with the loader and reload everything because everything had poured out. And, it's all that fun stuff. And, and loading just was like much more high pressure in a way. But
yeah,
I miss all that stuff.
It does. I mean, it does sound. I only got to shoot like 16 millimeter when I was in a film school before college. When I hit college, they're like, this is the DVX 100, and you're going to use it for the. I remember we got 1.5D towards the end of it, and everyone had to fight for the 5D, and I was just like, I bought what did I have? An AF 100.
Yeah,
I went from an XL2 to an AF 100, and I was just like, I know the truth.
I love those. Man. I had an HVX. I love that thing. I feel like I learned everything from that one camera.
It took, as someone who kind of, I'm about to hit my mid 30s, and so I kind of have this mental history of digital kind of coming out, and I recall this one era where you remember we had like the lens adapter, like of course, you actually put the lettuce or like the Red Rock or anything.
Yeah, I may have had the Red Rock. Maybe that's the one I got.
Did yours have the spinning glass or the solid glass? Yeah, so I think that was the lettuce.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're right. Lettuce 35, right?
Yep. And but I remember you had to, before that thing, you had to zoom all the way in to get any depth of field.
Yeah.
And now looking back on it, now that lens choices are so kind of, let's say, easy, there's a whole era after the DVX era or the DV era where everyone's shooting on like 100 millimeters just because they're used to that. Like, I was like watching old Vimeo shit, and I was like, damn, we really just stuck with that. Like, everything is like 85 or up.
Well, all of it is like you always shot wide open stop. You always like all those things. Yeah, that whole machinery to make it look, and also like, the color palette, like everything was just like, you didn't have the full range of film. Everything was just kind of like, what did we create with this digital thing?
Right.
In order to shoot shorts or whatever.
Yeah, it was it 28 days later that gave everyone permission to like not freak out about having film.
Yeah. Well, also I feel like there was a moment, I can't remember what year, maybe this was like 2012 or 13, when maybe earlier, when Roger Deakins was like, I thought it was him. He was like, film is dead. Like, he shot with the Alexa for something with the Alexa the first time, and he's like, this has fixed all of our problems.
12 or 13 would be correct, yeah.
Right? And then, that didn't age super well. But he was right for all the reasons. I mean, it's super difficult.
Did you go to Cinegear over the weekend?
I didn't. No, I missed it.
So, I mean, it was kind of, the vibe I got from everyone there was like, yeah, a lot of equipment. It was just nice to see everyone again and like be on the lot. Cause like I went to NAB and that was a fucking nightmare. There was just, there's just too much. There's just 65,000 people there. That's my entire college. Like, you won't run into anyone. And if you do, it's a surprise. Cinegear's way more relaxed, and it's in LA. So you see all your friends and shit. But yeah, there was plenty of there was a really high quality video tap that I saw on display. Like, and it was still in the prototype. They wouldn't let me take photos of it or anything. Cause I had
What was it?
I could find the.
Oh, you mean it was for any film camera? It was.
Yeah. They were just designing like a super HD video tap, and it looked fantastic. And I was like, the fact that and again, it was a prototype. Like they weren't even done with it, and they're like, we're just showing people that we make a nice video tap now. And I was like, the fact that they have enough money to do R&D for something they'll probably sell like maybe like 100 of, is interesting. So just the films coming back. Although I've heard Kodak can't fucking keep up with. It's like supply chain. They fired everyone. Then now they're getting hired back.
Yeah, I mean all of it. I mean I'm sure. I mean the thing is, I don't know when. I'm assuming it happened in like 2019 or 20, but for the longest time it was like whatever it takes to get a film made, they'll offer discounts and everything. And now it's the opposite. Now it's like, we don't care if you have 50 film cameras on the shelf, like you're going to pay top dollar for it. You're going to no more discounts on on film stock, any of it. So
unless you're Nolan and you buy millions of miles of film.
Yeah,
the biggest size possible.
Yeah, exactly, and advertise it for constantly. I mean, like, it's an expensive thing to do, and you have to have the budget out of the gate, I think, to do it.
Yeah, I did want to ask because like a lot of you got a lot of shorts under your belt and a lot of comedy and stuff. But looking through your IMDb, not all of, but a lot of the first AC work you did, like fucking Thor, Fast Five. This is the end, Jack Reacher, shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
What did those being on those sets and kind of observing that style of filming, have you carried anything over to that? Did that teach you anything that was like memorable, so to speak, or was that just kind of like a generally high intensity sets and you kind of move on?
Yeah, I mean, like there were. I mean, I think when you're in that world, it's basically just a job, So like once you've seen those things, I don't really feel like super intimidated by that, or like if there's certain actors or directors or whatever, like it's another job, and maybe things move a little bit differently. I mean, ultimately they're just on a bigger scale. There's certain things that happen to those film sets that happen on like film school shorts. Right. So like the basics of it are all still there. I mean, the one thing that helps a lot is if there's some like latest technology or some latest newest thing, you like always see it on those films.
Oh, really?
It'll always show up in those things. Yeah.
Is that weirdly? I always thought it was kind of the opposite, like music videos, commercials, maybe. Yeah. And then the larger films, there was like, we're fucking sticking bog standard here because we don't want any surprises.
That's a good point. I mean, no, I feel like they'll always try. They may not use it, but it'll show up.
Oh, but it'll be there. Sure.
It'll be there. Like the latest remote, the latest stabilized head will show up and you'll be like, what's this thing? Like, This is insane. And because like you can always, I think on those shoots, if you need 2 technicians, the company will actually send out 3 just because they want their product to work.
Right.
So, so that's kind of a thing. Yeah, like there's just a certain, once you've seen those things, you're not really, I feel like at least you're not like super scared to order it. If something goes big, it's suddenly you're on a film set that's now jumped to 5 cameras and there's, I don't know, you can lean on people to do stuff.
Right.
It's like in the indie, low budget world, you kind of have to do a lot on your own if you want to get things done a certain way or shot a certain way. It's hard to rely. You don't want to like put too much pressure on people who maybe haven't done that before,
Yeah, it's got to be kind of like the thing of like when you get really rich, suddenly everything's free, or like if you're famous, everyone wants to give you shit. It's like you finally hit the big time and you're like, oh, I don't have to do anything. Like, make him do it.
That sounds nice. I wonder what, yeah. That sounds nice.
I haven't been on this. But that is kind of what I was wondering, like on, because I've heard it similar thoughts said before, where it's like once you do see the big leagues, as it were, things become less scary. But I was wondering, kind of on a more technical level, like going from smaller shoots to your, whatever, Thor, Big Short. Well, I guess Big Short's different in this case, but lighting, I think a lot of, as this podcast is somewhat educational, and if I can, looking at the lighting setups and stuff, like what were kind of some of those differences that you saw besides obviously scale that people were taking into account that maybe indie people wouldn't quite know about?
I think in I don't know. I feel like on a bigger set like that, you have department heads are much more actively engaged with like producers. A lot of times department heads, like a gaffer or key grip, will get hired by the producer. And so because those budgets are just so massive, there's no real, you have to just be prepared to create everything at any given time. All of a sudden, like, I'm not going to use like if some A-level actor is like, well, I want to shoot my sunset scene at 2 a.m, on Thursday, but I wanted to do it outside. It's just like, there is no in those things. It's like, if that's the request, the answer is yes. And we will find any way to do it. So, but I think it's hard. I think as a DP, at least from what I've seen from like, obviously very like legendary DPs, the gaffers and key grip are highly involved, and a lot of times the DP's there as has to just manage correctly. Like, maybe they've heard of stuff that's, sort of the politics, everything is just heightened, right? So like they can see like the storm coming and let the guys know, hey, just so yes, you're setting up that sunset scene, but what they really are thinking about is doing this like rain underwater scene in a storm, like 100 miles away. So like get enough people to to sort of like cover everything.
Right.
So I think that's like, it's just the experience level at that. The experience level is pretty insane. Like the department heads just have worked with everybody and they've seen everything and they're not fazed by any of it.
Right.
It's definitely more comedic to them. Whereas I think if you don't have the experience, it'll scare the hell out of you. But, the money, it's like, just on those sets, like you're going to spend money. You'll try to, and at the same time, they're smart enough to know where to save it. And it's just a really hard thing I think only experience teaches you that. There's no way to read about it or ask, other people about it. You just have to be in the thick of it and probably get screwed at some point in order to figure it out.
But on like a technical level, or is it just more like, instead of a key light being maybe a chimerid sky panel, now it's just like a 12 by, like things just literally get bigger? Or are you seeing like different techniques?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I'm thinking more like, if it had to be like a BB light, like maybe that's the way to go. Just send that thing like half a mile away,
right?
And then like, I mean, that's the thing, is that you just have to be ready technically. Yes, I mean, technically I would say go big on everything, because it just gives you more flexibility. I don't think it's really, you can't, at least in my experience, I think it's hard to like set a mark down and be like, you're going to be right here for this line.
Right.
They're going to be like, no, I'm coming at you and I want you to push in suddenly last second. And it's not just that, like, it's like the focus puller, they get one chance. They'll do these, especially in LA, it happens all the time where you have, you'll have, again, an A-list actor and you get 2 takes and they're doing like this crash push in on our techno and there's no marks. And yeah, there's a lot of tricks and tools now that they have that make it easier, but
yeah,
it's not. It's like it's all this stuff and they're expected to nail it. And there's nothing you can do to really slow it down. You could, if you try to, you're just not going to last very long, I think. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I've AC'd a couple as a focus puller on like a couple shorts, and I found that the years of shooting my own stuff and like pulling my own focus by hand, like on the lens, I can tell the difference. Tell me if this is true for you or if I'm full of shit and I'm just making this. But like, I can tell the difference between the area that's in front of the focus plane and the air. Like the focus looks different in the front area of the depth of field versus the back. And so if that starts to go, I can like, I also focus peaking is nice these days. I never had to do it the old school way. They're like, you want to measure it? I'm like, yeah, laser measure is close enough. I got focus peaking, but like,
yeah,
I can kind of intuit that.
Yeah, I think that, it depends on the lens, right? I mean, I think anamorphics are different, and then like vintage ones go different. Like there's like there's a different stigmatism, I think, to the back, if I remember correctly. A lot of it, at least for me, always happened so fast that you'd have to, it's like a lot of it was sort of instinctual. And I also learned it sort of like in the film days. So like I do both, I'd have a monitor and marks and then towards the end just guesswork. And I kind of got out of it when things started going full frame, which is when it got really insane because like you needed the light ranges. So you needed all the highest end stuff to do that.
Focus bug.
Yeah, but I say that, but then I also work with a bunch of focus pullers like the legends who wouldn't use anything. And it was like, how did these guys just made a deal with the devil? And they did everything. A lot of those guys remembered it. They just knew frames. Like the focus pullers would know, like a 50 at 6 feet would be, and that's how they did most of their focus. So
that shit's wild. I watched an old there's a bar in downtown called The Wolves that I was just
of course. Oh yeah.
And filmmaker owned. They just did like a party for the strike and all that. Oh, nice. And there's a guy telling a story about how like this AC or like old guy was this dude has a mohawk and he was like, I bet that's 12 inches, three quarters or whatever. And they brought out a tape measure and he was fucking dead on. Like,
yeah, I tried to do that a couple times and I was never close enough. I was within like a foot, but like I could never like nail it.
Yeah, a foot at 1.8 is not gonna do it.
Yeah.
Oh man, so actually speaking of The Big Short, that must have been a tough focus pulling experience with all the crash zooms and like whip pans and bullshit like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting movie. It changed. It definitely was like the biggest movie I'd done in the sense that like I met Barry Ackroyd on that movie. I was in New Orleans on something else. Barry's normal focus puller on that job was not available. And the second assistant that lived locally, he put me up for the job and I met Barry and I was just happened to be the right place, right time. And Barry also kind of went through the ranks, more on the documentary side, but he was, crew. But he has like just a very different approach to it, especially the way he shoots. And thank God, otherwise I probably would have been fired on that. Yeah, he changed my life in terms of like how you would how you approach filmmaking and like management from the idea that like it's okay for people to make mistakes, and sometimes to encourage it a little bit, and then if they happen, to back them up or to give them another shot. It's really more about the effort and how like engaged you are. So that one was tough, but that was very also baked in from the very beginning because we lived on dollies and sliders in the 12-1, always like pretty much on the long end of the 12-1.
Right.
And I remember like at the very beginning, like we did the first 2 weeks on Christian Bale and he was like, even during the take, like Barry would unlock the dolly, start sliding and pushing and moving. And I was like, all right, well, is this how it's going to go down? And that's what they wanted. Like they wanted that. They just wanted, they wanted the out of focus stuff. They were going to use all of that.
Yeah.
So, because it's just a really boring story about finance.
Right.
Like, how are you going to get people engaged? Like, you're going to shoot it like an action movie, I guess. Or, I feel like I learned, most of what I do, I rip off from Barry.
Because you've had a few like mentors that have been like Barry, you got with Brian Gross.
Yeah.
Brandon, sorry.
Yeah.
Tak Fujimoto, I wrote it down. Dean Semler.
Yeah. I mean, all those guys, I mean, yeah, they're all legends, and they all, all of them have really come up through the ranks and done a ton of indie work. You don't realize when you like walk onto these huge film sets and they're legends, and you kind of assume they like just point at the sky and then beautiful things happen.
Right.
But like, there's just a ton of experience there, and they know, they all did work where it was just like them and an actor and a director and a sound person, maybe sometimes, it was like, so it would just, not that you don't, I mean, all the departments and all the specialties are everything, but, and they all came from this indie world and just had to do it on your own. But then also did big stuff as well.
Yeah. So, here's my hot ones question. In what ways, I've definitely stolen interview shit from that guy. Because man, the first like 20 episodes of this thing were a little rough. It's like, damn, I talked to him.
Great though. He's like so addictive. I can't let that show rules.
He's too good. I want to have him on this show and just be like, all right, give me advice. Like, I can't prepare like he does, because that guy is like, he's got like
an army of people. Yeah. Honestly.
Yeah. But I will say, like, certain DPs aren't that well known, or maybe don't do a lot of press, so that's like impossible to do any research on them beyond what
okay.
You go on their Instagram and you're like, I just fucking learn something.
You go through their Instagrams for them.
Yeah. Well, right now I've said this before on the podcast, I am the only one here. So I produce, I edit, I book.
Good for you.
Do the research. I mean, at some point I'll get a sponsor. Right now it's a public service. But the question being, between those like four mentors you had, like in what way are they the same, and in what ways were they different in their approach to filmmaking?
Well, it's funny because they're all like those four people in particular every one of them has a very different personality, like extremely different personality. Like they're not, but also on their movies, they also all have a very similar temperament. Like they're all, those people were all different generations too, and they all acted the exact same. And that was like a weird thing that I, when I first worked with Brandon, I think he was like maybe 28 at the time. So like, and he was shooting this Adam Sandler movie. So he had just finished Ghost Rider, I think, for that. And maybe MacGruber, maybe too, but like, so he got. I love MacGruber.
Well, that's the best. I got the Blu-ray. I must have bought the only copy at the Best Buy, but fuck me, that's a funny movie.
It's so good. It's all time. So he basically, here's this like 28-year-old kid that's on this $80 million Sandler movie, when everyone knows each other, it's like a high stress environment. And he like totally handled it. The second you see it, within like, 10 minutes, you're like, oh, he's like all the old timers. Like, this is great. And it's just, I think it's a certain approach. Honestly, I think it's just approaching it just like any other job. Like, here are the problems. This is what we're going to do. It's not boring. It's not like easy. It's just very methodical, and you know what you're getting every day. And there's really new stuff that happens, but they also want to know, they want to have your input. Like, they're not necessarily, they're not teaching the, this 40-year experienced gaffer or first assistant how to do something.
Right.
It's like, this is what we're doing, and is the camera all good? Yeah, the camera's good. All right, good. We'll just keep going. So it's just sort of like a steady approach that they all have alike. And no matter, at least to me, no matter what their backgrounds are, DPs, and like the whole gamut, weirdly on set, the ones that I see that I've worked with on the higher end, they all have the same approach. And I don't know how they got there, because they didn't work together. DPs never work together. They never study each other. And frankly, like kind of what I did, I don't think that many people go through the ranks. It just takes too long.
Right.
You know, by the time you get to shooting, you're just too old, like me. So I don't know. So I think,
same, bro. I ain't shit. Still doing corporate. I hate, what do you do? Because I write for ProVideo Coalition, I'm always, people go, what do you do? I just go, journalist. Because I've done that for 10 years too. But like, you say DP, like anything I've seen, I'm like, not unless you're watching corporate videos on TikTok, on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, it takes a long time. And they just have this, I don't know how to describe, there was one, I guess I won't be too specific on it, but I remember there was a DP I worked with, and they were looking to hire a DIT. And so I put out some names. We hired somebody, and then like a day one, the DP was like, "Yeah, they act like a DIT. It's like they fit the role. Like there's a certain like aura that people in certain positions have, and they fit the bill. And those are the ones that seem to work out. And usually I'm assuming it's just baked into like the pressures they're under, the people they have to talk to, and
like it's a self-selecting kind of thing where only the people that are like that make it because they need those skills to get there.
Yeah, like the first sort of have to have some zen, but they have to be nervous too a little bit, and
for a DP you gotta have a poofy jacket and Blundstones.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, get your armor, your shoes, and glasses out.
Yeah. I know. I don't have, man, watching what's his name, dude who shot Iron Man, Matty, watching him pop around at like Cinegear and stuff, with he's just always got, I feel like they just took the glasses off of him and put them on Tony Stark and went, there, that's his. He's like, can I have those back? They're like, no, they're Tony's now. You know?
Yeah, that's probably right.
He's got the cool glasses. Also, I did want to give you a compliment. I got to see Studio 666 in theaters.
Oh yeah,
and when it came out, and good job on that one.
I mean, I barely did anything. I basically EJ shot that through all of COVID. I think they had to shut down 5 days in, so he was, even when they were done, he had to just do tons of pickups. I just happened to be one of them. So like, BJ was an operator. I worked with BJ was the director, and Brandon Frost was the DP, and I was the focus puller. And the three of us, I think, did like 10 movies together or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're pretty linked in that sense.
Yeah. I had gone somewhere with that, but now it's. I did. Well, I'll jump around. I don't know if this is obvious, but I'm not very structured in my conversations.
I keep drinking coffee, so that's.
Yeah, my girlfriend started getting these Celsius energy drinks. I worked for like Red Bull for 8 years.
Yeah, I've seen those.
So with a Red Bull, regular can, 80 milligrams, they'd get 3 cases a month just to have, or give out at college or whatever. And so I think my body's good at 80 milligrams. The Celsius tastes a little too sweet, but there's 200 milligrams in there.
Oh no.
A coffee's 120. And
200 though, in a can too, so it'll disappear like instantly.
Oh, and it tastes like sugar. It tastes like a soda. So you're like, bang. And the first few, I guess I've equalized now, but I get I need a nap in the afternoon. But like those first couple, I felt sick. I was, like you get those like energy jitters. I was like, this is not like, did I just smoke a pack of cigarettes? What the fuck is this? What was I going to say? Oh, the DP thing. To your point about being kind of the vibe, would you say that a lot of it is kind of just, knowing when to delegate, being a good boss, but keeping your cool? Is that kind of the overall vibe that you're speaking of? That kind of
100%. Yeah. I mean, and like also the when I started, there were definitely a lot more screamers in like 2002. Like that was,
right.
I mean, that was just part of, that was part of the time, or maybe it was just, there was more like rah-rah from like the 90s. A lot of really bad stuff happened. And it's also just gotten more corporate over the past 10, 15 years, without a doubt. It's just like, everything's been, nailed. There's emails and texts, and then on top of that, the phone. There's evidence for everything. Like everything's just much more corporate. So in a good way. I mean, because it's eliminated a lot of like.
There's an HR department now.
Yeah. Yeah, for the crew, maybe not for the.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. That's definitely, yeah. You just have to like keep your cool. I mean, it's not only you have to, but like, you're gonna. A lot of people have spent a lot of time organizing your days, and you've been a part of that. And the day's gonna end. You're gonna get a lot done, and then you're gonna move on to the next day. No. So like, I think it's there's just a certain rhythm to it that makes sense to me, just because I've been on a lot of film sets.
Right.
No, it's like it feels like home. I would never want it to be home. I'd rather go home.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that's also a big perk about something, DPs get to do and not directors, where like directors, it never ends. They develop it for 2 or 3 years. Then they finally get to this thing and they have this tiny bit of time, and then they have to keep making it after it's done. DPs, like when it's over, like we're out.
I mean, I was going to say in the same vein, which job do you think is better, second unit DP or camera operator first unit?
That's a really good question. I mean, I personally like DPing more, so like I would say second unit DP, and I like trying to like fit into like what other people are doing. It's sort of like a little bit of a puzzle to make sure you stay in their same vein. Yeah. And at least for me, like the second unit stuff, I don't want anyone to know that I shot it. Like that's the biggest compliment you can get. It's just to be like the DP didn't even totally forgot they didn't shoot that thing. So, and that's something I stole from other DPs. Like that's just, I think it's an approach. It's really fun. The first unit operating, yeah, I just like DPing better.
So I 100%. I mean, the first camera operating in general is probably like the best job in terms of like,
I know,
you're super done.
Yeah.
But the second unit thing, the reason I ask is because I was a second unit on the last Bruce Willis film. It was like a 1-day shoot. We did 11 pages, and it was a great experience. But to your point, like I was getting all these screenshots. I had to reshoot the reverse of a scene, in a completely different state. And luckily it was, relatively low budget. So they were like, you just got to work with the daylight, which made my life easier. But even the stuff where we had to match lighting, it was very, not gratifying, but like that sense of calm you were talking about, where like they showed me the photos and I was like, oh, I can do that. Like, I know how to match that.
Yeah.
And you get especially with LEDs, I don't have to gel shit. I was just like, dial it in. Good. All right, cool. And then got to see it in theaters. And I was like 15 minutes of what I shot ended up in the film, which I was fucking flabbergasted by.
Yeah.
But it all like matched. Yeah. And I was just like, that's lovely.
It's really fun. I mean, I think that's the thing about, I think it's less and less now probably because of AI and everything else. But like all these tricks we had to make it work, it's kind of the fun. It's just super fun. Like we were just hacking. That's all we're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm not hacking as in like being a hack. I mean, hacking is just a computer hacking. You're just trying to break something and fix it, and nobody knows about it.
Well, and especially with the matching, and this will be a great dovetail to I think you should leave. When you're given a set look, in my head, it's like easier to match something than to make it up. When you're given
for sure. No, for sure.
You're an infinite palette, you're like, oh shit.
No, you're being creative technically, right? On second unit. Whereas, on first unit, if you're shooting or creating, you're trying to honor, the director and the actors and the writer and everything.
So with, I think you should leave. The reason that I thought this was a good dovetail was because every short, whatever you want to call it, every sketch is, I got yelled at for saying skit once.
No, we don't.
In a different, I didn't get yelled at. He was on the podcast, but he was like, that it's a sketch. It was the guy, what's his name? Oh crap. He's the guy who shot Key and Peele. Charles Pappert. Yeah. He's a great guy. But so how do you knowing that your show, because you've done all 3 seasons, right? So knowing that you've got whatever the budget is, probably not the most extravagant thing in the world, how do you maximize, your shooting package to get ready for, are you tailoring, per sketch what you're bringing to the set, or is it like one kind of general order that you put in, and then like how are you maximizing your efficiency and technology and creative ability?
Yeah, I mean, basically the thing, it's like you said, budget and time-wise and all that. I think usually we have on average like 30, 32 sketches a season. And this last season was our biggest shooting, like day-wise. We had 24 days. And season 1 was like 18 days. So, and then you have talent coming in, and then, you have 40, mid-40s, like locations you got to deal with in those. So like, everything's like constantly shifting. Like our producers, location team, our directors, after 3 seasons, we're all, I think, very tight, and we know what we're all dealing with, but it's always shifting. So you have to get one camera package that on any given day can really go big, or just be like handheld, tiny, one camera. And because hour to hour, the schedule will shift. So we might have like, especially this last season or 2 with COVID, like everything can change. So you just have to, the only time we ever got extra gear was for Crashmore on season 2, when we got some anamorphic lenses, but that was it. Outside of that, we shoot Venice for a couple different reasons. One of them being also we can go Rialto and get really small. Right. So that can get anywhere. We can get into a car, or we can be, on a Technocrane or whatever, and then deal with it remotely. We shoot mainly zooms. And again, I think it's for speed. Honestly, we don't have time to like change lenses a lot of times. So we kind of go like old school TV. Where, back in the day, they would shoot on a Panavision 4:1 and 11:1 the entire season. Right. And actually, most features did that too, on like the 10:1 Cook or whatever.
Well, and modern zooms aren't that slow anymore. There's some fast ones out there.
Right. That last season, I mean, I operate too, so like so I kind of screwed myself. But we used the Ingenue full frame zoom.
The Easies, yeah.
No, not the Easy. It was Ultra. It was a 37-102. It's a the 2.8, and it's great. It feels like a prime, especially when you're shooting like full frame. Yeah. So yeah, we have that, and then we have a set of primes too for like if you want to go like really cinematic or whatever I would say, or get more atmosphere into it. I have like these Panavision. There's like they're called, I think, prototype VAs. They just get really flary and a lot of atmosphere and stuff like that. If you want to, it really depends. Like sometimes a lot of the sketches don't want them to look good, so right. Because it's just not the look we're going for. The biggest thing is just to have a different look on every single, script.
So, yeah. Well, and it kind of doesn't really make any sense to use like a C-series anamorphic in an office.
No. I would love to try it. I think I would be super down and just live on diopters all day.
Yeah. Yeah. What about the lighting package? Do you kind of like have a basic lighting kit you go by, or does that end up changing a lot?
That changes a lot. Yeah. At least this past season, because I try to just pre-rig as much as possible. And we just don't have, a rigging team per se. But there's a company, Cam, that's Chris Galdamez, Michael Galdamez, and they own like a shop here in LA, and they're able to get ahead on sets. It's like season 1, we did no pre-rigging. We just never did. Geez. We just rolled in and went. And this season we have a little, we found a little more time and space to be able to get ahead, so that as soon as we landed, we could, start shooting as fast as possible. So that shifts a lot. I mean, again, it's all LEDs, right. It's all Asteras, it's all
the tubes.
Yeah, and basically the biggest thing is just to have a dimmer up.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Yeah, they gave. So I made I was holding that for way too long when you looked away, so I looked like a fucking idiot. But yeah, good. I did
That's
a thing.
Sponsor right there.
Actually, yes, not yet, but I did this thing with Stray, the rental house Stray Angel. They're on the west side, but the cool guys and gals. And when the tubes came out, the Pixel tubes, the original ones, the AX ones, me and the owner of Stray, they have a stage there, just parked a little car on it and did like a process shot with the tubes. And I guess the Astaire people saw that and were like, that's the best thing. And so I was walking through like NAB last year, and the distributor chased me down, and he was like, I love all your stuff. And I was like, I don't think you know who I am. And he goes, no, Kenny, right? And I was like, what the fuck is this? And so yeah, I was talking to him about Cinegear, and they might, I guess, letting the cat out of the bag a little bit,
Nice.
but they might sponsor. I don't know.
They should.
He wants to. But yeah, fucking everyone. I think that's like those Titan tubes are like, I think every set must have them.
They do. I can't imagine not having them. It feels weird to even ask for them anymore.
They're just kind of assumed.
It's just assumed, I mean, I think the biggest thing is just to know. I just feel like the dimmer op is such a vital piece to all of it. I mean, I also, having said that, I probably take camera for granted because I just came up with it. So it's just super natural. I don't feel like I think about it that much. So, and lighting is not, something I came up with. So I'm definitely learning a lot every day about it. But having that dimmer op is just the best thing for speed, I think.
Totally. Especially now that it's all on the iPad for the most part.
Yeah, or like, I mean, that's the thing, right, with film sets in general, is now everything's 2.4 gigahertz, so they just blast everything out. So like the Prestons start failing.
Oh, sure.
The phones start messing everything up. Like everything, it just turns into this big cluster of wireless everything. But yeah, whoever has the strongest signal wins.
The audio guys are just like, ha, ha. Oh, they're still on radio. But there's got to be other bands. How do we only have, what is it, 2.4, 5.6? That's it? Those are the only two bands we can have?
Yeah, well, the Teradeks are 6, right? The new one is, that's where everyone's leaning, so that's a good one. And, you can always, on the headsets, you can always go back to the 900 megahertz.
Sure. Yeah.
That one's always free.
Right.
Waiting for people to hang out.
Yeah. What was, I saw on the little thingy when we booked you, what was the other film that you made something else recently that I don't think I can see? I was not sent a screener of it.
Yeah, no, we're if you want, I can send it to you probably. We're actually premiering tomorrow at Tribeca. So it's called.
Oh shit. Well, I'm not at Tribeca, so
no.
But yes.
I'm supposed to, in theory, fly out tonight, and I'm hearing they're canceling flights, so I don't know.
Oh, because of New York, yeah.
Yeah. So but yeah, we premiere tomorrow. It was a feature I shot, HP Mendoza directed, and we are shot it like 2 years ago in Western Massachusetts.
And I interrupted you. It's called The Secret Art of Flight.
The Secret Art of Human Flight.
Human Flight.
Yeah. It was great. It's just like it's like your very traditional 19, 20 day single camera indie. It was great.
What's it about?
It's so it's about a guy, basically the lead actor is Grant Rosemeyer, and his wife has just passed away, and he's dealing with his grief, so he hires he basically hires Paul Racy, who's like this hippie, to help him deal with his grief, but the way he's going to deal with it is by learning how to fly. So he has to sort of go through all these different things, and does he fly? I don't know.
Well,
we'll see.
And it's I just started giggling a little bit because I know it's like a drama, right? It's like
yeah, but it's not like, it's supposed to be lighthearted. Like it is lighthearted. We're not like, you're not going to be like crying the whole time.
Sure. Well, but what I was going to say was
comedy in it.
Well, what I was going to say was the reason I started giggling is because that could be a fucking, I think you should leave. So, like I think you should leave setups are always like, that could be a drama, or that could be absolutely fucking ridiculous. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then the best part about it, I think you should leave, is that like, whatever something happens, like that's sort of a very familiar thing. As soon as either something happens or something's very topical, like that's the last thing we'll do, or they'll like scrap an entire script if it's like too similar to something that's actually happened.
Right.
Because it always just has to be very unexpected and unpredictable. So
yeah, there. I know we're coming up on time a little bit, so I'll let you go in a second. But I had a couple questions. One, how many you've mentioned before that you've cut a handful, not you personally, but removed some sketches. At what number? How many sketches do you think no one will ever see?
Oh man, I don't know. If I say that, they'll probably I don't know.
We'll say everyone. It's a vague number.
Over the seasons, I would guess probably 10 over 3 seasons, maybe.
Oh, okay,
maybe more. I mean, some of them are sort of half. Who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if one day they like took one sketch and cut it into like 3 or 4 different pieces or something. I don't know. I feel like everything's. Yeah, there's a. I don't know. There's a lot out there. I think that.
What was the reason for cutting them? Just didn't hit well, or because I imagine if they were still funny, you could put them on a Blu-ray compilation. You know,
I mean, from what they've told me in speaking to like Tim Zach editors, that there's a certain rhythm to the show. So there's a certain rhythm to every single episode, and it may feel super random, but they like spend probably as much time curating all the episodes as they do actually cut them. And they're super committed to this 15, 16 minute, time. So yeah, if it doesn't fit into that rhythm, it's not going to make it. Even if on its own, the sketch is great. Yeah, they won't do it. And I don't know, I'm not involved in that process, but like, it definitely works. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Every one of these is like the mixtape from heaven. It's just very.
I was literally about to say, like, curation is so undervalued in today's society, I think.
Yeah.
Using music as an example, like the radio is no longer curated. That's just the same 40 songs, played a million times. Spotify has curated playlists. A lot of times those are bought out, but there's there's something missing from the individual coming up with something that fit their taste. And then that would kind of show someone who likes some of the things in that playlist or whatever that radio broadcasts, and then they would maybe get some new stuff, so big fan of curation.
It's all tailored to what you like to listen to, and
I get bored.
Yeah. And this show, that's the thing with this show, is that like, it's not tailored to anyone.
Yeah.
You do whatever. I mean, maybe obviously it's tailored to Tim and Zach, but like, yeah, man, they don't, they do what they want to do, which is the greatest.
I think that's the way to go. I think we're probably going to see more, maybe not the absurdity, although there's probably plenty of absurdity out there, but just like, I think for too long in the past, like 15, 20 years, we've been trying to narrow down making things for a specific, person, or sorry, opposite way, like making something that like everyone will like, instead of thinking like, what do I like? Or what, like, am I making this for one individual? Because for whatever reason, that seems to be more accessible.
Yeah.
Because you can identify with a voice. You can't identify with an amorphous idea,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's like season 1, like I remember we were working on something anyways. We were prepping at Panavision. We went out to lunch, and like the day after it came out, there were people already just like saying lines from season 1, like just in a restaurant. And it was still a pretty small, like niche kind of show. Like people still don't really watch it on a bigger scale, I think. But like, yeah, it's its own thing, and people connect with it. And that's because doesn't cater to anyone, I think,
Tim has become one of those like TikTok overlays for fucking everything. Him just screaming, I didn't know none of this shit or whatever. Like it's weird to see, because first it was like memes. You would just take a straight image from something, and and now it's like people are, I actually find it kind of fascinating how the average person is remixing stuff almost in real time at this point.
Oh, 100%. It is in real time. It's like, God, there's one I saw, I just saw it this morning, the Matthew Broderick movie from the 80s.
Inspector Gadget.
With War Games.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Where they put the Eggman cartoon into War Games in the trailer. It's so good. It's so well done. Like,
it is.
And I mean, the show has just been out 5 days or whatever it is, 6 days.
Yeah. Do you have I'm sure you've been asked this a bajillion times, but any of the sketches particularly tickle your fancy?
I mean, I love Eggman. Eggman is hilarious. And probably Calico is from season 2. The P dot.
Yeah.
Just because it's just very long and there's super long, it just breathes a little more, you know?
Right.
I mean, on the flip side, like you have Metal Motto from this season, which is like, I think people are it's gonna take a while, but like it is so filled, it just hits you every 15, 20 frames, there's like a new joke. It's just
right.
So much going on. It's overwhelming. But where like Calico is, there's, moments where he's just walking away from you for 10 seconds. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad they used that entire sketch. One of the few ones where they used the entire script.
I enjoyed my girlfriend's been watching a lot of trash television. Her words, not mine. So the zipline sketch hit me. Nice. Good because I've way too many Real Housewives and dating shows and shit, and so I was just like, I like this. This is good.
Did you watch it? Like, I mean, are there any other ones that you really liked, or?
Well, I will say I was kind of bouncing through them, but when everyone was like, I told some of my friends I was going to interview you, and they were like, ask how they do the crooner, and I was expecting some weird. I was like, okay, I'll figure it out, and then I go watch it, and I was like, wait a minute, they were doing the bit to me. I thought this was like, I thought they had like a question about process shots or something, but that one is.
That one's hilarious because it's like somebody asked me yesterday, like, how did you shoot the crooner? It's like, it's in the script. Like they literally tell you at times you have to make it look fake, and then the other times you don't. Like that's how you shoot it.
Yeah, I guess
that's the idea. I mean, like they're telling.
I guess it was weird to me. Maybe they weren't doing the bit. Maybe they actually were asking because like I was
really confusing. The whole show was really confusing. Wasn't doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, you must have had actually about that. You must have had just like a slider on the side of the car, right? To kind of
slider dolly, the combo. Yeah, sometimes we had to overcorrect and make it look really fake. All of that.
Yeah. Tim's anger spurts are like, I feel like you could put that in anything and it's just fucking funny. Like it's a great.
He's really the nicest. He never yells.
Oh,
he's the anti. He's the nicest person, at least I've ever worked with. I mean, it's crazy. So
that's right.
It's always weird to see him yell.
Before I let you go, I asked the same 2 questions, but one of them won't make any fucking sense. So we'll just bring it down to one. At the end of the podcast, and that is, a lot of times people go, "Oh, what's the best piece of advice you ever got?" And I always think like that always ends up being, "Oh, stick with it." So what's the worst piece of advice you ever got?
Oh. Well, I've got a lot of bad. What is the worst piece of advice?
Or one of the bads if worst really fucks your head up?
Probably to like not make friends. That is the worst piece of advice for a guy. I mean, it's very, very, this is from the early mid aughts, it was like, very much like, we're the camera department and we run the show. And it's just not the way it works.
They told you to not make friends with the rest of the crew.
Yeah. Or basically run the ship, and it's like, it's sort of an approach, it's a different time too. Like in all, fairness, like back in those days in the real film days, to me, camera people will get fired daily.
Right.
In comparison, almost, you never see people getting fired anymore. Back then, people would get fired just because they looked funny on a certain day, or there's like a slight focus buzz when like it wouldn't even matter. And so you really had to like defend yourself. But that didn't translate very well as I go on career wise and everything. Like, to me, the only way to make any of these things is with friends.
Well, and I feel like that's why we all got into the thing, because, you know, you you want to make a bunch of friends and do maybe serious, maybe silly projects, you know.
Well, that was my first thing, is on In the Cut. Is like, all those people are still my friends. Like, I was like, this is it. This is my career, because why wouldn't you want to work in this environment, you know?
Do you know who? So I interviewed Ari Wegner, but also the production designer. He did Lord of the Rings and shit, but I'm blanking on his name right now. But I think he also worked on that film. Grant Major.
God, that sounds really familiar.
His CV is fucking bonkers, and he's just the most nice, like, casual. He did all the Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
And he basically, him and Jane basically like started the film industry in New Zealand and then Lord of the Rings for sure. But like, and he's had his hand in all these amazing things, and he's just kind of like, yeah, I guess I don't really think about it too hard. And you're like, of course you don't. Gonna let you go. Gone a little over time, but I'd love to have you back on to talk about whatever else, you know, especially after people can maybe see the short. Next thing you're working on. Are you working on anything else you can say?
No, not really. Little shorts,
well,
here and there, but like, yeah, no.
And also right now,
until it comes out. But yeah, no, the Secret Art we're really proud of. So like, yeah, but hopefully, it should be distributed this fall, hopefully. So I think we're all excited about it.
Right on, man. Well, keep in touch.
Yeah, keep in touch and everything. Thanks.
Frame and Reference is an Owlbot production. It's produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan, and distributed by ProVideo Coalition. As this is an independently funded podcast, we rely on support from listeners like you. So if you'd like to help, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/frameandrefpod. We really appreciate your support, and as always, thanks for listening.